Hi, thanks for joining. I'm Reagan Sonneban. I'm a small business owner and real estate investor. I have short-term, mid-term, and long-term rentals, but do consider myself a mid-term rental expert. This is something I actually got started in back in 1997. So feel free to join my website at reagansonneban.com to learn about upcoming workshops, resources on mid-term rentals, things like that. But today I'd like to welcome my guest, Karl Larsen. He's a fellow member of Owners Club within the Sub2 community, and I want to share his story and a little bit of the exciting things Karl has going and going forward in the future.
Reagan, thank you so much for having me on.
My pleasure. Absolutely. So just to kind of look at where you've been and kind of what you've had leading to your expertise up until here, tell me a little bit about what your real estate investor journey has been like so far.
Yeah, no, it was birthed out of necessity, I guess you could say. My wife and I have been entrepreneurs for 15, going on 15 years, and we've built a few companies, one of which we built and scaled. And so when I was looking at the real estate, it was really trying to solve a tax problem that we had, like a lot of entrepreneurs and high active income people face. And so it was really out of necessity. And I saw a YouTube video of Pace. It always goes back to Pace because he's the GOAT. And he was talking about buying properties, no money out of pocket, no credit. And I was like, there's no way. But if that's true, wow, like, okay, I got to check this out. So that was kind of the thing that got me over the edge to kind of get started. That was January a few years ago. So yeah, that was the first big piece of it. And then really getting into it, it was navigating and figuring out, what part of it do you want to be in? And there's so many different ways you can, definitely make money in real estate. And I tried a bunch of different things. And what I really landed on was multifamily. With my business experience, one of the things that we really excelled in was building teams, and realized that when you get really good at building teams, putting leadership structures in place, building people up, putting them on the right seat on the right bus, and really understanding people from a human standpoint, personality standpoint, and just like building the chessboard so they have the greatest opportunity to succeed, that the multifamily space in real estate really was going to be the most synchronized with my background. And again, you can do so many different things that are all great in real estate, but that was really where I landed. But it did take me a little bit to get there because there are so many different options, especially in the sub-2 community with creative finance. There's 1,001 ways you can, do well in real estate and help people.
So true. And, it's interesting with multifamily. I think there are a lot of people in the community that have an interest in multifamily these days just because you can go farther faster. And, even within the multifamily arena, you've got small multifamily, you can certainly work with a group of partners and do something much larger. Now, one thing I don't want to overlook is you have something really interesting that you've done that I think I've never heard an investor say before. So tell me a little bit more about some of the truly, truly creative things you've been working on.
Yeah, you bet. So one of the fun projects that my wife and I started would have been summer of 2023 was we were at that position point with our kids where, my oldest son was 8, my youngest one was 5, and we were starting to think a little bit more creatively and a little bit bigger on what kind of experience do we want them to have when they're growing up and getting educated, right? And like, what does that look like? And we live in northern Minnesota now, but we used to live in Boulder, Colorado. And we were shocked at how many different options there were for education for the kids. I mean, 4 or 5 different philosophies and 3 or 4 options within each philosophy. And so we had to do a deep dive. It took a long time to figure out which ones do we align with, which ones do we believe in, and then plug our kids into that. And it was amazing. And then moving back to northern Minnesota, where we're from, was one of the best decisions we ever made, but there was one option, right? So we were kind of like, it's a great option, and a lot of people love it, but once you expand your mind, it's really hard to kind of contract back in. And so we were like, we did the public school thing for a few years, and then we were finally like, you know what, we got to get this thing going. So it was June 15th of 2023, and we made the decision, like, no more. We have to get going. We have to start this, which was a problem because the school year was starting in September. So we're like, how are we going to do this? And I mean, it was one of the most amazing experiences in the most stressful way, but amazing because you've ever had a project that is on a super crunch timeline and you need every single thing to just line up perfectly.
Mhm.
And then it's kind of like feedback from the universe, like you're going in the right direction.
Right.
Was amazing. We found,
Wow.
we looked at a bunch of properties. We found one that we actually bought creatively, 100% seller financed. Um, and so it was, that was really cool to be able to acquire the property. It was a beautiful single family home on 20 acres. And
Wow.
so just lots of space for the kids to play and to be outside. And then we needed a curriculum, we needed teachers, we needed a market, we needed to get the founding families. I mean, do all of that from mid-June to beginning of September. And I don't know how, but we pulled it off. And so now
Wow.
it's called Lake Academy. If you go to lakeacademy.school, you can see everything we have going on. And props to my wife. She is really running it the day to day and
Mhm.
is crushing it. And we're getting so much interest. We're like looking at expanding. We went from 7 kids we started with to the end of the first year, we had 16. And now we're at 25. And now we're looking at, probably 40 by next year. And
Wow.
probably going to have to like do an expansion. And so yeah, it's really exciting, but that's probably been the most impactful project we've worked on just because it's so close to home, obviously.
Mhm.
Um, and so yeah, that's been an experience, and diving deep into that realm. I mean, it gets convoluted really fast when you start looking at who's in charge of what and where does the money flow and how decisions get made. And I mean, there's no
Wow.
clear, guidebook on how to do this. So it was quite the jigsaw puzzle to put together, Reagan.
No kidding. I mean, just like in that kind of time frame, finding a property, going through all the red tape, getting everything ready. I mean, that's amazing from that perspective. But so it sounds like that was your first creative deal, right? And is that correct?
It was that summer I did 2 or 3 creative deals, and those
Okay.
were my first few. Yep.
Okay, got it. And that's only been not even a year and a half ago now.
Mhm.
And I mean, look at where you are. You're part of Owners Club. You've been spending a lot of time one-on-one with Pace at workshops, Day with Pace that we got to share together, things like that. I mean, look at, just the launching pad that was. How amazing. What are some interesting things that you've been working on lately?
Yeah. So again, focused on multifamily is where I'm at, and we have a bunch of assets under contract right now that we're doing the due diligence on and finalizing everything, which is exciting. Up in northern Minnesota, we're looking at some other larger assets in the south, but really, it's not only with like me and my team finding the right assets to be able to provide affordable housing for people. That's obviously one of the biggest. That's a problem that's being solved. Is like
Sure.
affordable housing is the huge issue, and being able to find multifamily properties that we can acquire creatively and be able to structure in a way where we're not the class A and the rents are through the roof, although that's a great long-term kind of like portfolio you can build. It's really class B, high class C, and being able to offer those to people. So that's the problem we're solving. But really, that's one. But the other one, I think you're familiar with this too, and what you're doing with the MTR space is being able to just connect operators with brokers and all these different markets, and being able to create like a marketplace where we can help connect those people. And because you're not going to be able to buy every piece of real estate, although that would be awesome, right? That's just not realistic. So for us, it's really all the different types of real estate in multifamily space that are not in our buy box. We want to be able to still help the brokers, help the operators, help the cap raisers all kind of connect. And so basically building out a pipeline of, you know, uh, getting those deals and those people connected so we can connect them, and they still going to meet their goals. We're going to meet our goals. And so building that marketplace where those people get to connect. Yep.
That is outstanding. I mean, a marketplace like that is so needed, and especially in a really active community like the Subto community. I mean, there are so many deals taking place. So,
Mhm.
how would someone kind of get connected to that marketplace? I know it's not fully built out yet, but what does that look like?
Yeah, no, great question. Right now, we are just building a Rolodex per se.
Mhm.
For all of you people that are, what am I? I'm 39 and older. You probably know what a Rolodex is, but we're building out a Rolodex of buyers, building out a Rolodex of operators, building out a Rolodex of brokers, And so right now it's really just connecting people on a human to human basis. Eventually, ideally, it would be like a big software platform where people can just plug and play. Not
Mhm.
there yet. That's going to take time. And there's a lot of different marketplaces out there right now. So, we're still working on exactly how that would look. But in the short term, what's nice about the multifamily space is a lot more, it's not so broad. There's so many people in the single family space,
Mhm.
and it's a really great place for people to start. But in the multifamily space, there's not as many players. There's different language that people use. And so we're really focused on just creating those human to human connections to be able to make introductions and get things rolling that way.
Amazing. Now, it sounds like, so what you'll be doing with that marketplace, will that be nationwide then?
Yes, Don, at some point we want to build it so it's a nationwide connecting place. Yes.
And are there, specific kind of hotspots where you focus today in the interim?
Yeah, right now we're focused on the Minnesota market, just kind of where I'm at. My one of my partners is in Florida, so we're heavily in Florida, and we're also looking in the Phoenix market too.
Nice.
Those are kind of the three main ones, all really good areas for different reasons.
Mhm.
Um, some of the markets we want to get into is North Carolina, Raleigh, that area. That
Mhm.
place is on fire right now.
Oh, yeah, for
And
sure.
a lot of big companies moving in, a lot of economic activity. So we definitely are looking at the next few markets to expand into also, but that's where we're based out of right now. Yeah.
Okay, and now you mentioned Florida. What part of Florida?
There's the Miami area, and then kind of the Panhandle is the big spots right now is where we're focusing in Florida. Mhm.
Gotcha. And do you have, boots on the ground in those areas, or how are you choosing the markets?
Yeah, we do. So I'm based in Minnesota. My partner's based in Florida. So he's got his network down there of people kind of spread out. And then I have it up here in Minnesota. And then we're just building out the infrastructure, quote unquote, on the relational side in Phoenix. There's a lot of actually in the Sub 2 and Owners Club, there's a lot of people in Phoenix right now, which is very cool. It's
Absolutely.
just a hub, like it's attracting people in. People are going there for that specific purpose, which is exciting.
Mhm.
So that is also, we're building boots on the ground out there right now in Phoenix.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
so, thinking about like for someone like for myself, even knowing that I have my eye on potentially some multifamily investments over the next year and beyond. So, what do people need to identify to share with you their buy box so that you can be on the lookout for what they might be looking for?
Yeah, if we have people, there's a few different players per se that would
Mhm.
fit into this game, you could say. One is a buyer, obviously, and they just have to be clear on what they're looking for,
Mhm.
unit size, class, um, MSA stats, if there's a
Mhm.
certain population growth they want, certain base
Sure.
population number that they're looking for, those are all really important. Um, and then as we get multifamily assets shared with us, we can just go through our Rolodex and find people that are looking for that, and then ideally connect them, and then they're off to the races. And maybe the deal will work, maybe it won't, but I think that's a big piece of it. Also, non-multifamily, just real estate investors.
Mhm.
As you're meeting people, as you're talking to people, there's always deals that pop up, and
Yes.
so I think if you do find one, that's huge. And the caveat to that is people are really looking for creatively structured deals right now because the interest rates are high.
Mhm.
Although, if you look at the all-time spread of interest rates, they're not astronomically high, but they're a lot higher now than they have been for a long time, a few
We've been
decades.
spoiled.
We've been spoiled 100%. So it's definitely something that people are the deals aren't penciling as well as they used to, and so when we can get more of a creative structure built in, that's something to look for. So if you find a multifamily asset, it will be at 20 units, 50 units, 70 units, or more, and the sellers are open to different types of structuring versus just selling it for all cash coming in. I think that's really where you win too, because you'll attract a lot more buyers and there'll be a lot more people interested in taking a look, right? Which is the number one goal is get as many eyeballs on the property as you can. And then if you get enough eyeballs, you're probably going to find a few that are going to want to take it down.
Absolutely. Well, and I think, half the battle is finding sellers that have kind of seen the light and understand how creative finance can benefit them, because really it benefits both the seller and the buyer. I mean, we both know the tax advantages on both sides. You can't overstate the importance of that. And you think about people, we've got a lot of investors in the community that are fully focused, but we've got a lot of people that still have a W-2. So maybe they need to offset high active income, things like that. So there's so many things that factor into what really makes a deal beneficial to both a buyer and a seller.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. There really is. And I think I want to edify your point about once you see the light of creative finance, you can't go back. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you really start to ask yourself, even this year, I bought a few deals that were not creatively based. And there's a lot of really good banks and a lot of really good, investment advisors within the banks and all of the things.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a rigmarole there. There are so many hoops and so many this and so many that. And when you can just work with, a qualified team and work with the seller and just have productive communication to structure
Mm-hmm.
things, it's so much smoother, to go from A to Z and structuring in a way where both parties get what they want and probably have, team in the middle to make sure things are flowing right. But, there's a structure there too. But yeah, I've just found that it's so much more enjoyable and
Yep.
both parties actually win so much more because there's not as much money being, chomped in the middle out of it. So uh, it is the way, in my opinion, that's going to create the biggest splash is creative finance. And it's just starting. It feels like, because we're in it every day, Reagan,
Right.
it's like, how could you not know? But it's like,
Yep.
it's still new. Like I'll go out and I'll talk to 10 realtors, 20 realtors, 10 brokers, 20 brokers, and like very few. It's more common in the multifamily space for sure, because just the way things are structured, but it's still not everyday language in the real estate world, and obviously we're part of a group that's trying to normalize it across the board. And we're going to keep doing that for many, many years to come and help with that, mission, but it's definitely not mainstream just yet.
Absolutely. And I think you're right. It does. The way that you just described that, I thought really brought a lot of things together. I mean, it removes a lot of the friction, a lot of the frustration, but also I think, if you can get over that barrier of trust and people understanding that this is a way, and sometimes one of the few, if not the only way, that both the buyer and the seller can win, and really trying to understand what everyone on both sides of the deal is looking for, what they need, what the pain points are, and, just kind of putting the think tank around it and figuring out what's the way in this specific deal structure, what needs to happen to alleviate those pain points for the seller, to give the buyer what they need. And then that's when you really come out with a true win-win.
Yeah, actually, in my local area, we're working on a 32 unit right now and negotiating it. It's not under contract yet, but we're feeling very confident that it will be in the next week
Mhm.
or so. But we started negotiating with them in August, and they started and stopped and started and died two or three times because my partner and I kept bringing up these concepts. And at first it was a brick wall. And then the second time it made a little bit more progress and we've chipped away. And now they're like, oh, this actually makes sense to me.
Yep.
So that sounds great. Like,
Mhm.
so now we have a completely creative finance deal structure for this, 32 unit in the multifamily space isn't a huge asset. In northern
Mhm.
Minnesota, it's a bigger asset because there's not as many, larger assets up here per se, especially in the rural areas. But yeah, it's once people kind of see it, it's just like, oh, this is great. I think a lot of it too is just trust between the parties, you
Yes.
know, and once that's built up and there's good communication and they feel that, I think people open up a lot more. So that's
Mhm.
really, building those communication structures and building those relationships with people is huge. And again, that's why one of the things we're focused on is to be able to create a conduit for the buyers, for the sellers to be able to productively do that, So yeah.
Absolutely. And I think even before you've had a successful deal with a seller like that, there are so many people involved in a transaction that you're building those relationships. And it is that having seen the light thing, like once they realize, like that aha moment of like, wow, this really is going to help the seller in this situation, because you know that whoever is selling that, or the broker, or, the title company, or everyone involved, they have exposure to so many other deals, and starting to build those things out, it just it kind of really takes on a life of its own. And you've got this ecosystem that you're really building the foundation for something amazing. I know there was one deal that I was looking at with some partners recently, and I hope we'll end up going under contract at one point. But then in going through and doing some skip tracing and taking a look, we recognize that that this business owns a tremendous number of assets. And so it's like, yes, I want this deal to work out. But beyond that, I can see there's a lot of other places we're going to be doing business together going forward. So just that relationship and kind of continuing to leverage that, and where you start to see how even within the sub-2 community, it's a self-sustaining ecosystem. It's really amazing.
Yeah, 100%. And even I remember there was a year or so ago, there was a smaller multifamily residential fourplex that we purchased and acquired. And the seller was an older gentleman. He'd been running it for 10, 15 years. And he was the sweetest guy. And his number one concern was that the tenants were going to get taken care of. And that we were going to make sure that, like we continue his philosophy of how he cares for the people. And so, again, that deal was completely creatively structured. And we created a super attractive note or a structure for me and for him. And he got all of his wants and desires and needs. And I got what I needed. And like the tenants are still taken care of. And it just made such a great win-win. And we got to negotiate person to person and just be like, okay, what's important to you?
Right.
How can I help you with that? What's important to me? And it was just such a great, productive way of going about. Again, that was a really small deal, like locally here, but it proves the point of like, it really is exciting to, see those creative things come to fruition. And, as we move forward into like some bigger assets, like, we're going to continue that philosophy.
Absolutely. And I mean, like you said earlier, I think seeing how all of that comes together and that you also have the affordable housing angle of that. So when you start thinking about exit strategy, so, you're getting into a great asset, you're, saving the buyer various pain points, different motivations. And then, on the inside of that, being able to benefit the community with affordable housing. I mean, that's really a win-win-win. So you can't do much better than that.
Yeah. And again, I think sometimes in real estate, people lose sight, but you're solving a problem. Like, what is the problem that you're solving? And in the multifamily space for us, it's really affordable housing. I mean, if you really get down to it, and that's going to be the big need. And so again, it's like, can you do that in a way that benefits both parties the most? I think you can. I think we can. And I think it's going to be mainly creatively structured deals. So yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. And, even there's some other things we're throwing around, and this is more in your realm, but like taking these multifamily properties and offering some of the units for, midterm rental.
Absolutely.
Right. Short-term rental opportunities, and just kind of take the ball of clay, which is the asset, and maneuver it, like what's the highest and best use we can get out of the building, but also out of each individual unit, because it doesn't have to be one building, 100 units, long-term rentals across the board, period. Like it can be, maybe there's some room for changing it up a little bit in the future.
Absolutely. I love that thought. And I think there's absolutely room for that. Well, this is really great to hear all the things, all the irons you've got in the fire, what you're building. I can't wait to see how this marketplace continues to develop. I know people may want to find you and tap into what you're doing and see how things evolve. What's the best way for people to get in touch?
Yeah, that's great, Reagan. Thank you for that. So you can go to karlglarsen.com. That's Karl with a K, Larsen with an EN, karlglarsen.com. It's everything I'm working on right now. There's going to be continual updates there and opportunities for, buyers to submit their buy box, and, other parties involved in the multifamily, transactional belt per se, to be able to be involved and submit their information. So yeah, it's all going to be built out there for now. So that would be all my Instagram, and all my social profiles are all linked on the website also.
Perfect. Well, thank you. This has really been great to hear a little more in depth some of, the nuts and bolts of how that will work. I've, learned about it at a high level and have just really admired what you've done already. Looking forward to hopefully some folks being able to follow along with your journey. Thanks again, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Reagan. I appreciate it.
Sure.